What's up, guys? AC here, and today we're going to be talking about breakouts. It's going to be the anatomy of a trade, what we look for to get into a trade, and we're going to go through a couple of examples so you can learn a little bit easier. Let's get into it. So first things first, this is just going to be a brief overview of how we actually look for the breakouts and how we get into the breakouts. And so I'm not going to go through the entire scanning process today, but essentially, the entry for most of our trades is usually going to be based on the daily chart. And so we're looking for it to break out on the daily chart. We will be using intraday charts for our more fine tuning of the entries, but really the breakout needs to happen on the daily chart. The exit will always be the low of day on the intraday chart. So you look at the 5-minute opening range, and then whatever the low is of the day, that's going to be your stop for the day. In terms of exiting your position, usually we're going to be trying to take profits in the first 3 to 5 days. If the breakout is working, you'll often see a nice 10-15% push in the first couple of days. You can take profit, and then you can just trail your second exit with actually the 9 or the 21-day moving average. And you can always sell a little bit more into strength. You can always sell a third or another half into strength, and then always trail that last piece with just the moving averages. So what are we looking for before we get into a trade? And really all of this comes down to your watch list and scanning for stocks before the market opens and really having a game plan before the day starts. So we're looking for stocks that have made a pretty big move recently. In the low caps, usually that's like a 50 to 100% move. And in the large caps, usually that's anywhere between a 20 to 50% move in the last week to a month. We also want to look for some consolidation. And so, a stock that's made a big move, we do want it to, start trading sideways or even start creating a bull flag. And that's actually a sign of strength. And so those are the kinds of setups that we're looking for. We also want to make sure that it's finding good support along the 9 and the 21-day moving averages. If it's really not finding support on any of these things, then it's really not a stock that, is acting appropriately, and it's not something that we want to be trading necessarily. We also don't want to see a lot of chop. And so you want to see a clean move up and then a clean consolidation phase, because that really defines your entries and exits very well. If you see a lot of chop, 1, the trade might not work out, and 2, you might not get the best, risk to reward. And the other thing is you actually want to see price and volume compressing prior to that big move. You'll often see that, stocks will make a big move, and then for the next couple of days to a week, it'll actually consolidate, and the price action will actually become very small. And what I like to call those candles are very squishy candles. And again, if there was a catalyst, you want to make sure that the catalyst is still intact. For example, if it was an earnings play, you want to make sure that the sentiment around the earnings is still the same. If there was a new, if it's a pharmaceutical and there's new data, you want to make sure that data is still intact and not refuted. Otherwise, that catalyst may not necessarily be in play anymore, and then the trade might actually not be a good setup anymore. So these are some of the trades that we're going to look at that we're setting up in this last week. As you can see, the red means that they didn't work and the greens are still in play. You can see that the success rate is not 100%. Usually, anywhere between 30 to 40% is a good success rate. Chris himself will actually say, his best trading years, 25 to 30% is really what he was averaging. And so just get used to getting stopped out. And again, this is going to be a disclaimer. This is only for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. So let's get right into our trades. All right. So here we go. These are not necessarily in any particular order. Actually, it's probably best to look at the strongest setups first, and then we'll kind of go over the weaker ones. So I'm just going to, I think GSKY was actually one of my better setups, and so let's go over this one first. So as you can see, GSKY made a pretty big move, about 50% in the last month or so, and then it started to flag nicely. It started to create this nice bull flag pattern. And so in your pre-market, trading, you want to get these on a watch list and get ready. So for me, this was actually the day that I really was interested in it. So, it's made this nice big move, found some support along the 9 and the 21-day moving averages. And actually, it actually created this nice wick right here on this day before. And so the bears really couldn't push it down. And so I was very excited to get into this trade the next day if it saw some continuation. So let's look at it, what it looked like on the intraday chart. And again, this purple line is a breakout on the daily chart. So you'll see that on my intradays to help me with my entries as well. So let's see which day we're talking about. It's right here. So you'll see the first thing I like to do is, I like to wait for the 5-minute opening range. And so here it opened at 794 at 8.01. So on the daily chart, it opened up, right around here. And then, I was waiting for it to break the daily pattern. And so here, you'll see that it created this nice 5-minute opening range. And really your entry is right here on this bar right here. As soon as it starts breaking out on the 5-minute, you have to assume that this is the start of a breakout and you have to get into the trade. And so that's what I did. I entered right here. My stop was at the low of the day. Unfortunately, I got stopped out pretty quickly. I got stopped about 0.1 per share. And so I think I had about 200 shares with about $20 loss. But I really like the setup and I'd take it again if I could. And so you'll see it on the daily chart now. So, again, your entry is right here on the break of, that flag on the daily chart, and your stop was at low of day, which previously was right here. And you can see why the stops are really important, because once it gets down to here, you don't really know if this thing is going to continue or if it's just going to be a reversal. And so you really have to have these tight stops. But again, this was a good setup, just unfortunately it didn't work out. Another good setup, I believe, let's see. Let's just start from the top. So AHPI. So AHPI, the setup that I was seeing was right here. So again, this was a stock that made a pretty big move in the last month or so. It's up 83% in the 6 months. And so it made this big move from 4 to 10, consolidated 7 to 16. And then again, a little bit of a sharper retracement that I would like to see. But again, then it set up this nice consolidation, found some good support on the 9-day moving average. And so, trading right between the 9 and the 21, it's a little bit weaker than I would have liked to see. Usually want to see it being a little bit cleaner, but still a decent setup. And so I was putting it on my pre-watch, watch list. And so here, the way we're going to enter this again, you got to buy this on the break of the daily chart. And so we'll see what it looked like prior to getting set up. So I believe, yep, this was the day. And so you're ready. You always wait for the first 5 minutes to establish itself. So, the range was 9.75 to 10.4. And so, you'll see this range right here. I'll highlight this so you can actually see it on the daily chart. So again, you'll see that the range is right here. And your job is to buy at the break of that range. And so, your entry is right here around 10.5, and because it's a break in the daily and the 5-minute, and then your stop has to be at low of day. And unfortunately, trade just didn't work out. It actually had really good momentum when the day started. It got up from 10.4 to 11 pretty quickly, almost a 10-15% move, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And the other thing to remember actually is that, this trade at one point was a completely green bar. And so, you have to remember that at one point, the trade looked like this. And so, if you're seeing just this on your, on your chart, that's a pretty good setup for a breakout. And so you have to buy it, at the right time. And you just have to, you have to just keep doing them until the breakouts work. And so, unfortunately, just this one didn't work out. But, I still would take the setup over and over again. And then you'll see, it just fizzled out and really not a lot of follow through. The other thing is the volume just, it really wasn't there on this day. And that's really the other issue. It just didn't have a lot of volume. It, usually trades 10 mil on average and only traded about 2 mil. And so just not a lot of volume there. APP, another setup here. This one wasn't as clean, but I still wanted to keep an eye on it. So this stock, had a nice move from 55 to 76 and then started to set up a nice flag over here. The reason why I really want to, put it on my watch list is on this day, it actually broke on the daily, but it just happened so late in the day that I just wasn't, I wasn't comfortable buying it at high of day. And so, the problem is, let me show you where it happened. Yeah, the problem is it broke, around 10:30 and it was already at its all-time high for the day, and I just didn't want to buy there. So I put it on my, watch list for the next day, and you'll see how it's set up. So the next day, again, really wait for this 5-minute range, right? So you'll see this was the first 5-minute candle. It's hard to see because it's extended here. Let me get down. Again, this was the 5-minute candle right here on it. So, pretty tight, 74.5 to 74.8. Your entry is already, since you're already above the daily breakout, your entry is really, as soon as it breaks the 5-minute opening range, you have to get in. And so, your entry here would be 75 with a stop at 74.4. Depending on your risk tolerance, you can pick up as many shares as is appropriate for your account size. And then, it had a nice follow through for the rest of the day, 74 to 79. And then if you look at it on the daily, continues to consolidate. And so, this could be in play. I'll probably look to take some profit in the next day. If it gets up to 82, 83, I'll probably look to take some profit. And then the rest I'll trail with the 9-day moving average. CODX, I'll be honest, I took this trade, but it wasn't the best setup. So in hindsight, I'm not surprised that it didn't work, but this was the setup that I was seeing. So, I saw this, it made a good move from 7.5 to 11.5. Didn't really have this clean, orderly pullback. It kind of is choppy. I thought I saw a little bit of a bull flag setting up here. I found some support on the 21 and the 9. And so I put it on my pre-market watch list, and I took it and it was working out actually okay. It just didn't have a lot of good follow through. And the other problem is the volume just wasn't there. This is something that trades 1.4 on average. On this day, it only traded 640K. So there's not a lot of volume on this day. But this is what the setup looked like on the 5-minute chart. So I had it on my watch list on this day right here. And then I had my 5-minute break. And so, my entry, since this is the daily, my entry would be anywhere above the 5-minute. And so above 11.1 is my entry. My stop is at low of day, 10.85. Had a little bit of follow through, but just couldn't push the rest of the day. And then it just fizzled out. Actually closed okay for that day, closed above the 5-minute opening range. But then the next day it just, had no follow through at all and just sold off. And so, sometimes this happens. The entry, was great, but, the setup wasn't great. So I really, I'm not trading 5-star A+ setups. This was probably a 3-star, B+ kind of trade. And so I'm not surprised it didn't work, but, the market was kind of slow. So I put it on my watch list. EXPI, this one's actually a little bit of a better setup. So EXPI, again, made this move from 31 to 54, took over the 200 EMA, found the support on the 9 and the 21. It did, go all the way down to the 50, which isn't, the best sign of strength, but then it really started suffering this 21 and the 9, and so I really liked it. And then this nice, clean bull flag setup. And so the day this was the day it was on my watch list, above 46. If it had continuation, that's when I would buy the next day. So let's see. Right here, the 5-minute range is 46 to 45.4. Your entry is right here at the break of the daily range, and so 46.2 would be your entry. Your exit would be at 45.4. And again, good follow through, actually, closed very strong, actually, never really closed below VWAP, and just continued to, show some strength into the rest of the days. And actually, I think I actually sold some on my second day. Sold a little bit early because of this original pop when it was up 10%. But I'm just going to trail the rest with my 10-day moving average, the 9-day moving average. But, I think this setup still has some room to go. If it does get past 54, we could be looking into blue skies territory, and so that'd be pretty great. But again, not the cleanest of setup, but, pretty good entry. We already went over GSKY. LC, this one was a pretty good setup. I would say A-, 4-star setup. LC had earnings here, had a nice EP play, gap up play, from 16 to 29, about 100% increase in about a month or two. And then, it started to flag. And so it started to find support on the 9 and the 21, trying to trade sideways. You can see that the volume is compressing, on that day of the breakout, huge volume, up to 44 mil. And then, on these days, kind of smaller volume, 900K, 1 mil, 700K. And so compressing in volume as well. And so this was the setup. I did like how it, even though this was a red day, it found support on the 9-day moving average. And so that's a sign of strength, actually. And so you got to put this on your watch list. And then the next day, let's see. Which was our entry? Right here. So our entry again, this is the breakout on the daily. So anywhere above 29 is where you can take it. So you have to wait for it to break both intraday and the daily. And so 29.1, 29.2 is really your entry. It's kind of tough to get into this because, this is a 5-minute candle and it pushed all the way up to 30 pretty quickly. So you have to keep this on a watch list and be ready for it. But your ideal entry would be around 29.1 is your ideal entry into this. And it had good follow through. It made a good move. And now it's just continuing to follow the 9-day moving average. And, you can sell a little bit into strength, probably, at 32 on your third day is maybe not a bad day to sell. And the rest you can trade out with the 9-day moving average. This actually was a really good setup that just didn't work. I actually had really high hopes for this one, but I'll show you what I was seeing in this one. So LTHM, had this big move from 18 to 27, and then it found a lot of support on the 21 and the 9-day moving averages. And it actually got tighter and tighter along the 9. And so on this day, I was very excited to try and take this, above the breakout on the daily chart. And so you'll see what happened. Again, this is, to orient you, this is the 5-minute intraday chart. So this is the breakout on the daily chart. So 25.6 corresponds to right here. It actually opened at 25.6. So that means I was looking, as soon as the 5-minute ORB was established, I was looking for it on the break. The next 10 minutes actually traded down sideways a little bit. And then on the 15th minute right here at 9:45, this is your entry. 26.3 is where you enter, and your exit will be at low of day, so 25.6 right here. And if you look at it, actually, it had really good follow through. I mean, this thing went up from 25.7 to 27 in a day. And actually, at one point intraday, I was very excited about this trade. It had good follow through. It seemed like it was going to work, because at 10:45, this is what I was seeing on the daily chart. And, that looks like a pretty good breakout. And so, you enter right here, which is where the breakout establishes itself. And, you just have to hope that there's follow through. But unfortunately, not a lot of follow through. Volume wasn't there. And so it just failed and didn't follow through. It still is finding support along the 9-day moving average. So I think that there's still some room. It probably just needs a couple more days, maybe even a week to continue trading sideways and set up a little bit more. Let's see. I think we went over AHPI, app, we went over Codex. NTLA is a good one to go over, actually. So NTLA, the reason why this one is great is, this one actually had multiple setups, and I think it took some time to actually follow through. So, it had a big move from 90 to 200, and then it tried to trade sideways. Honestly, I would say that, this probably was a setup right here as well. You buy this break on the daily chart. It just didn't have a lot of follow through. I don't know if this was necessarily a setup. Right here probably was another setup. But for me, I was looking at it. I started looking at it in this range, and so this is what I was seeing. I saw that, it made this move, continues to consolidate, keeps finding support on the 9 and the 21, really couldn't break here. And so I like the fact that it continued to surf the 21, and I really like this bullish engulfing candle here. So on this day, I was very excited to see if there's continuation. And so, I'd be looking to enter above 161. So let's see what it did on the intraday chart this week. So in the intraday chart, it actually opened up at 161. So, it's opening in a bullish fashion, good continuation. And then it created this nice entry, 164 to 161 was your entry and exits. Again, this is the breakout in the daily, so you're already above it. So your entry is a break of the 5-minute. And so this was my entry point right here at 164. And you just put your stop at low of day. And so, you can see it actually had good follow through on the first day. But then it kind of closed weak and couldn't really reclaim VWAP. But because it continued to trade above the 5-minute opening range and, it's above my stop, I let it go for the rest of the, I swung it overnight. And then, you can see the next couple of days continue to have good follow through. And so, I think in hindsight, I probably should have taken, no, actually, you know what happened? I actually sold my position on this day when, I sold my position on this day when it didn't hold a VWAP. And in hindsight, I broke my own rules. I should have swung it overnight, but I didn't sell and I didn't re-enter on this day, and so I kind of missed this trade. I'm looking at my positions and it's not, I don't have it right now. So unfortunately, this is one of those broke my own rules and kind of paid the price for it. So this was probably a good breakout. Let's just do one more PAVM, PAVM. So this is a decent setup. Had this nice move from 5 to 7.79. I didn't like the fact that it had to retrace below the 50, but I liked that it reclaimed it, and then the 9-day and the 21 started to catch up. And I really got interested in it right here when it started to find really, really tight compression. And so on this day is when I was looking to trade it as a breakout. And low volume too. So, it had this big move here and then low volumes here. So let's see what the intraday trade looks like. So again, this is the breakout on the daily chart. So it opened at the candle high. It opened right here. And so I waited for the 5-minute, and your entry is above the 5 minutes. So your entry is actually on this candle right here. It did trade downwards for a couple of minutes, but then, it did actually have good follow through for the rest of the day. So that's why you just got to trust your stops. Once you place the trade, you can't get scared by this big red candle. You just have to, you started the trade and you just have to let it follow through. And so if you get stopped out, you get stopped out. And if it sets up again, you could consider taking it as another trade. And so, you have your stop rules, you have your entry rules, and then you just let it ride. I think I had pretty good follow through actually. And I think I'm still, I think I sold a third of my position into strength on this day. And still holding the rest, and so we'll just see what happens. So those are some of the setups that I saw for the last week. We didn't go over AEHR. This is another position that I took, but again, similar concept. Good consolidation right here, and so made this big move, consolidation, another big move, consolidation, and then this is where I took it. So we'll just have to see. We already went over app, CRM. This was not a breakout play. This was more of a unusual options activity play, so I won't go over that one. EXPL we went over, PAVM we went over, RSI. This one actually similar setup. You have this big move and then some tight consolidation, and then played this breakout right here. Don't know if this one's going to play out. It had pretty good price action, but then it retraced, so we'll just have to see. If I get stopped out, I get stopped out. So there you have it. I probably took, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 trades. I still have about 6 open. And so it's probably around a 30 to 40%. I didn't show all my trades, probably a 30% rate so far. We'll see how they play out, but that's kind of how you have to trade breakouts. You buy them on the daily breakout, you get good tight risk reward, and then you just have to let the trades play out. If you want to learn more, qualmagi.com is the best place. I'm still learning. He has a Discord, which I'm actively following. And I'll be posting these videos pretty regularly, so you can, always come back here and check out new content. But if you like this video, continue to follow me. I'll probably have an upcoming market watch list coming up in the next couple of days. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.